GM, everybody. Good sighting. Good to see some new faces. Everyone from across Australia who has heard GM more than 5 times across the 2 days. Let's raise some hands. So this is the Get Going funding movement. I wanted to make it a bit more interactive, a bit more fun. The idea of movement is today's topic. Therefore, in the room we have 4 types of people. Artists, A, B, C, D is what I like to call them. A, artists, B, builders, founders, C, collectors and degens, and D, developers. So 4 types of people. If you're an artist, raise your hand. If you're a builder, raise your hand. Collector and degen, and developer. Cool, let's continue to do these raise of hands because this is going to be almost like a DAO conversation. What I mean by that is, how do we add more value to you guys? Yeah, we can just talk at you, but if we can have a 2-channel communication, you guys are going to receive the most value, and we'll be able to reciprocate that energy back to you. So, we've got Gnars. We don't have Gnars, the rapper. It's Gnars DAO. I got asked today, you're speaking to Gnars. I was like, hey, that'd be cool. But this is even cooler. It's Gnars DAO.
And Gnars for the Americans.
Gnarly. So we've got Gami here, and then Damien King, the king. Jump through, let's do some quick intros, and then we'll jump into the juiciness of funding, movement, and let's jump through. Gami, starting with yourself.
Sweet as. G'day, I'm Gami from Nouns DAO and the founder of Gnars DAO. I've actually got a little 2-minute video to play, but I thought give Damien a chance to introduce himself first, and then we could chuck it up on the screen. Is that okay?
Of course, man.
All right. Oh, no video? Oh, I'll act it out. I've got my props. Well, I guess I'll just
jump in.
I'll tell you a little bit about what Gnars is then instead.
Please.
Yeah, so if you were around yesterday or in the lobby at all, you've probably seen a little bit about Nouns. Back in earlier this year, I did Proposal 51 and got 69 ETH to get started on Gnars DAO. And Gnars is a fork of Nouns, so basically a community of people pooling funds. And what we spend it on is extreme sports, so funding the refurbishment of skate parks in developing countries, activating the communities, and then providing incentive loops so they can keep engaged and earn some ETH and have some fun.
Love it. Jump in, Damien.
GM.
Also, a round of applause for Damien because he just dropped an NFT collection yesterday.
Check it out. Thanks, man. Yeah, so I'm Damien. I'm the founder of PUML. Hopefully some of you guys came to bowls. Any bowls out there yesterday? Yo. So, we're a Move to Earn platform. A little bit about me. I'm probably more of a old school crypto person. So I got into crypto a long time ago. I'm a developer. Spent a lot of time in the UK in the music industry originally. And then, going into Bitcoin mining 2012, so very early. And I've just been through so many cycles, and I think I can bring some of that positivity about the future.
Wealth and the beauty of it.
Yeah,
so let's navigate this conversation, funding and movement. Let's talk to the audience. Funding, who here wants to hear about funding? Who here wants to hear about movement? Go again. Who here would like to hear about funding? Engaging your product, earning more money. Who here wants to hear about movement, move to earn? Cool, let's start off with funding. No, this is engaging. This is going to be helpful.
Money talks.
Money does talk. Let's start off with particularly with your model. It's built around a DAO. Talk on the modeling of that, particularly the release of Gnars and how it gets subtracted, and more so the narving is what you guys call it.
Yeah.
Explain that model because it is quite useful for anyone looking to develop a DAO or release a collection. When raising funds, there's many, many different ways to go about it. And yours is quite authentic, and it's built on a few principles from Nouns. So explain that model and how it's worked and why it's working so well.
Yeah, I guess much like Damien, I'm a bit of a dinosaur as well. Not calling you old or anything there. But yeah, I've been around crypto a long time, and I guess when it comes to Gnars being one of the first forks of Nouns, I wanted to tweak a few things. And if you're familiar with Nouns, we have a daily auction where we sell an NFT and all the money goes into the treasury. With Gnars, I changed that up a bit. So inspired by the Bitcoin halvings, we have what's called a Gnarving. So we still have back-to-back auctions, but at the start they're every 10 minutes. and then every 1,000 auctions that doubles in duration, so the emission rate halves. And the reason that I really enjoyed creating this is that the chart that represents that emission curve looks like a half pipe. So it was really just like a branding decision, but it's turned out to be really helpful for the community and people getting involved and sort of providing incentive for the people that came and showed their support earlier. I think it's important to sort of get those day ones a bit of a leg up and help them to make the most of what it is that you're building. So. And
I want to touch on some stories from yourself in Brazil, Uganda, but before we get into that, because you're supporting and activating spaces across the world, and we'll get into those yummy stories. But Damien, yourself first, a lot of people here are looking for funding. They're struggling. They're surviving, literally surviving on the thin thread of their project, whether it's already launched or they're wanting to fund it to launch. How do you think you've gone about it differently to everybody else?
Well, yeah, we're quite different because we're actually crossing over from crypto to NFT. So we've got, I suppose, feet in both camps. And we really funded ourselves on the token this year. And my suggestion to founders is like network. Actually go to IRL events. So, we had a story. KuCoin, they'd said they'd invest, but we couldn't get them over the line. We had investors pulling out. Even this is earlier this year, even before everything got a little bit worse. But by going and meeting them face to face, we went to a hotel room. They had a whole bunch of cats they brought in. It was like a cat party. And literally there was like a casino table. Anyway, after that, about 30 minutes I left that party, I saw the Ether transaction come through and the funding landed. So being there IRL at these networking events can make the difference for you when you're trying to raise funds.
Let's pull that apart, because we're literally here at a networking event and someone is thinking the same, cool, I need a network. What does that mean? Does that mean, I've had this before, someone's handed me their white paper and said, this is what I'm building, can you help fund it? People have done this to me. Should they do that? What's the specific detail? Can you drop a bit more detail on when we're approaching each other? Because some people are looking for funding, collaboration. How does that play out particularly?
Yeah, I think obviously do your own research if you're just going to go try and ask for funding. But I would totally recommend people look at bringing on an advisor. You know, that doesn't matter if you're in the NFT space or in the crypto space, but if you get an advisor who can talk about you and your project and then you get a warm introduction, it just lands so much better.
And what type of advisors do you particularly look for? Is it a certain network in a certain niche? Is it you had advisors for the Web 2 side, the Web 3 side? How did that play out across the project?
Yeah, pretty much ignore anyone with Web3 expert on their LinkedIn for starters. No, you're pretty much just trying to find someone who's delivered something, right? They've been through a project, they've been through a funding round, and they're well connected. And again, do your own research on that. But those people usually have a pretty large footprint, and you can go off and see all the goals they've kicked, what their community is, etc. And it may cost you in some type of form, whether or not that's equity in tokens or in NFTs, etc. But it's well and truly worth it if you find the right person.
And speaking of finding the right people, a massive part of Web3 is building community. We hear it countless times, particularly identifying key leaders within the community helps incentivize. We hear it continuously that if you're building out a project, the best way to go about it is to do it with the leaders. You identify those key people that are early, that are participating, and you incentivize them. Now I want to touch on this topic, the idea of gamification, the idea of incentivization, because that is how we retain our community. So with Gnars, how did you go about identifying key leaders?
Yeah, the interesting thing about that question for me is I didn't really have to try. Thanks. That's primarily because of the mechanism that I was able to make use of having been part of Nouns. And also to touch on what Damien said about advisors, like already being part of a DAO that has a lot of successful founders as members was sort of the real unlock for me to be able to get these sort of lessons before I actually took the plunge myself. And then in terms of rewarding or identifying these early community members that can sort of carry you through, I think it's just about being mindful and thoughtful about incentive structures and not not trying to do things in an extractive way. You got to really focus on the long game. And for us, what has happened is a couple of pro skaters like Dave Bashinsky, who's very famous if you're in the skating world at all. He sort of just showed up in our Discord one day. I had a call with him and was really careful to nurture the relationship and not fangirl over him and gush too much. But but after that, he really did just sort of spread the word of mouth. And as other pro skaters and pro extreme athletes got involved, it sort of helped us to identify people that were most in tune with the culture, because they would really vibe with the different milestones that we hit. And then they sort of, if they're feeling empowered, they'll pick it up and run with it. And then it's really just a matter of like identifying those people and giving them something else to reward them and sort of incentivize them for that long game.
And yourself, Damien, what does that look like for you guys? Obviously, you just dropped your NFT over the last few days. What was the particular reason for partnering with Crypto.com around that? Was there a particular incentive that you guys provided, and what was that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in the current market, obviously not a great time to launch an NFT. Is anyone launching an NFT right now, by the way?
Bless.
Couple, yeah. So look, it's super hard, and so I think the Crypto.com partnership was sort of part of our marketing strategy, because it is really hard to market at the moment. And so again, going back, if you're a founder, if you can create partnerships with existing brands, a little bit like, you got great founding members on your DAO, in the same way, because we're crypto and NFTs, we're looking at, partnering with existing exchanges and then bringing on our community via the exchanges. Unfortunately, some of the exchange guys are usually traders and have a different sort of viewpoint rather than the NFT community.
Is anyone looking to partner up with an exchange in the room? Raise your hand. Cool, we won't go down that route. No, it's a good idea, because if people are looking to partner on an exchange, it can be very difficult. A lot of hoops to jump through, talking to the right people. So we'll shift it a bit. Gami, talk about your personal experience with these more so creative leaders and content leaders, because you guys are leading through a content narrative. That's your incentivization, is being able to provide content, and that's growing the brand. Give an example of how that has worked.
Oh yeah, that's something really recent too, so I'm particularly excited about it. We've had a bunch of people that came into our community from Brazil, and Brazil have a really strong affinity with skate culture and crypto, and we noticed that skate culture and crypto also have very closely aligned values, so it sort of attracts the same type of people. And Brazil's in this sort of growth phase in terms of crypto at the moment, and a community member of ours, Akva, introduced another guy named Vlad, who's a pro skater in Brazil. And it just so turned out his mentor is Bob Burnquist, and so in the skate world you got Tony Hawk and then Bob Burnquist basically. And Bob joined the DAO, and through that we were able to learn about the places that these people are from. And there's an area in Rio de Janeiro called Praça 15, and basically skateboarding was outlawed until 10 years ago. And so just last week, as a celebration of legalization of skateboarding essentially, we installed a permanent set of giant Gnars glasses that you can actually skate. So one side is a kicker and the other side's flat, and then the arms of the glasses are rails. So we had this event where there were 3,000 people showed up, 1,000 skateboarders, and it's just massive sort of 24-hour party and skate jam. But there was a real mission-driven sort of structure behind that, where we onboarded a few hundred people to Web3, helped to show them how crypto is powering the stuff that we're doing, and then provide through social media engagement these incentive loops where we can continue to keep that momentum going and continue contributing public goods.
What did those incentive loops look like?
So I guess it's super important to make things really accessible and not say, hey, you get a MetaMask and then go here and get some ETH and do all this stuff, because new people are just shaking their head and confused. So we've literally just invited people to post content to a hashtag that we drive the campaign with, and we're soon releasing some tools where the community will actually curate that content on a leaderboard, much like you'd see on Reddit. And then like each week there's funding rounds where the best content gets paid out in ETH. And you can actually onboard new customers to Ethereum without even needing a wallet. So there's products like Magic Link and other products where they've done a lot of experiments with, say, sending someone a link, and then through that link they can get onboarded, and then there's some ETH waiting for them in the wallet. So it's just really a matter of like getting rid of the friction points and trying to make things a bit more accessible to the average Joe. So yeah.
Have you found that for yourself as well, Damien, getting rid of the friction points? What are you guys incentivizing? I'd like you to particularly touch on the onboarding process.
Yeah, that was a big part for us. So for those who don't know, we actually started off on Move to Earn for B2B. So one of our first customers was Deloitte. We have Louis Vuitton in Singapore, Malaysia. And so straight away, every employee needed to be able to download an app and simply scan a QR code and automatically have a wallet set up. So there's a level of custodianship, but this year we actually released a 2-token model. And I think 2-token models are really interesting. So internal token is 100% a loyalty coin, and then you burn that to actually create the ERC20. And so that way we can operate in areas that don't even like crypto, like America, and not have that regulation issue. And it creates a really smooth onboarding from Web 2 to Web 3. And we think, right now is the time to make it frictionless. And, that's the future. People won't know that it's an NFT. They won't necessarily even know that it's a crypto either.
And have you found that going from A to B, building a whole skate park and activation in a new place, it's a very difficult process to keep that person ongoing. With the ones that, because people are building communities here, they're able to get people in the door and see them. Now you're incentivizing them. What's the grand vision for Gnars in terms of longer term to build out for these leaders? How do you see that playing out? Do you see a multitude of different areas? Was it skating, snowboarding?
I guess we've already started branching off into other extreme sports. So we've sponsored a pro skier and a pro snowboarder, and we've sort of got a young kid from Isle of Wight who just came fourth in the World Championships for scooter. And then we've also got Joe Atkinson, who's 3-time world champion aggressive inline, which is basically rollerblading like a ninja. It's really impressive. But yeah, we've sort of branched out into different sports, and then through that experience, when we were sponsoring individuals, we learned like that's not that impactful because you're just helping like one person. And what's way more impactful is to identify these people, find out the places that they're from, and go back to their roots, and then figure out ways to contribute things that uplift their community. And so they become a local hero instead of just being a sponsored athlete. So for us, it's that broader vision is just being informed by what's happening in the day-to-day activities of the DAO. And I guess in the future we can see what I'm calling a marketplace, but basically a creator economy for extreme sports. And we've already had brands sort of begin to reach out to us through some of my contacts in the industry. So it's been really cool. And I guess that's what I'd love to see in the future is like skating and other extreme sports to be able to exist autonomously without like kids being shilled energy drinks by their heroes, because that's kind of crappy. We want to focus on the brands that actually make products for skating and for other extreme sports.
How about yourself, Damien? Do you see us all walking around and checking our phones and earning coins and going to 7-Eleven and purchasing Gatorade and off we go to the next spot? How do you see it playing out longer term?
Yeah, definitely. I think X to earn is a huge thing, right? If it wasn't for there's going to be a bit of a slowdown, but it's not going anywhere, right? Everything's going to be based on incentivized behavior, right? And we're all about health and well-being, and we're very passionate about that. And in the same way as you guys are using athletes, we also have athletes. We have some, AFLW players and things like that. And they're sort of using our platform as a way to motivate other people, but also share their story. And it's that sharing the story and that community element that I think incentivizes as much as earning crypto. I think, most people have probably heard of Steppen that did, 122 million of NFT sales in the first quarter last year, which is just crazy. That when you create something that's 100% incentivized on making money, then at the same time, when it's a bit of a rug or the FUD comes in, then you see it sort of disappear. And so we're trying to bring on more of a Web 2 element to health, which is it's great to be healthy, it's also great to be paid. Let's encourage both things, and really the icing on the cake is earning the NFT or the crypto. But let's think more about actually just improving your life, owning your own data, and getting healthy with your friends.
So what would you guys say is the biggest incentive that anybody could provide outside of movement? What do you think is the biggest incentive that we can showcase? Is it money? Is it another NFT of identity? Is it being part of the story? What is the greatest incentive that we could provide to our communities that come on board, say, here, continue to stay with us, this is why?
It's a super hard question, right? Because I think everyone wants money. At the bottom line, like everything is price action, and you see that today. And so if people have a good floor price, then they're happy. The community's happy. As soon as the floor price is down, regardless of all the utility and the access and everything else, it goes out the window. So I'm afraid just as humans, I think money still motivates the most.
There's a reason why I'm pressing on it, because that's what I want to hear. We spoke on before this. Let's challenge each other. Let's get into this, because this is what people really need to hear. I'd rather give them what they need to hear instead of what they want to hear.
Just to add to that, there's, inside of Nouns, like we're founded by Punk4156, who you might be familiar with on Twitter, and he's a bit of a thought leader and shares a lot of interesting insights. And he was, basically, when he founded Nouns, he was like, he'd just sold like his ape Punk, with the blue bandana, for like $10 million, which is just insane. I don't know who bought that, but they're crazy. And he saw, after getting out of CryptoPunks, he sort of asked this question of like, what's CryptoPunks V2 look like when combined with all these crypto native tools that people like me and Damien have been using for years, right? And that's sort of how Nouns sort of came about, was sort of V2 of CryptoPunks. And the reason that I bring that up is like, he's asked this question of like, okay, now what is the problem? And the problem was everyone looking at us from the outside in are like, these crypto bro guys are a bunch of losers, like they're toxic, everything they do is just about speculation, blah, blah, blah. And then his sort of strategy, which has informed mine, is to do things in the real world that touch like real people and do positive change for good. And I think that's like a thing with PUML as well, is like, if you're focused on like that aspect of your product that does good for people, and less about price action and stuff, it's always going to slide back to that at some point if the wrong people are in the community. But you just got to try and focus and be a leader who leads by example.
Always having a bigger cause, I would call it, you would have to have a bigger movement. That's what I'm a bigger believer of. There has to be something greater than just yourself, greater than just receiving glasses. We all know what the glasses signify, which is the beauty of what Nouns is built. It's the identity of this particular movement. The identity of NFT Melb is the identity of culture. Within what you guys are building, let's touch on a few stories, particularly Damien, within your community. You guys have both done something very excellent, which is being able to touch on the Web 2 space and communicate your ideas very congruently to them and onboard major health brands. What are the stories you're seeing coming of those partnerships now in your community?
Yeah, I think from a brand perspective, they're probably a little bit damaged at the moment, to be honest. But prior to that, I think everyone wanted to be into the Web3 space. They wanted for us employees to be healthy, and the fact that they can use our product, get their employees connected when they're working from home and isolated. It was a way to bring back community and also be able to give them something in return, which if an employee leaves Deloitte and joins KPMG, they keep their own tokens, they keep their own NFTs, they keep their own data. And so it's this new world of ownership that is the promise that I think the brands are starting to realize that's what Web3 is about. It's not just hype, it's not just crypto, it's about ownership. And that soon every person will expect ownership of all of their digital assets.
Did you find it quite difficult to first communicate to these larger brands? Because we have a lot of people here building that we have to continuously connect with a Web 2 audience, Web 2 thought leaders. How did you go about it? Did you sit down on a presentation and flick a few screens of this is MetaMask, this is OpenSea, this is a Pong?
No, this is back to the whole Web 2 to Web 3 element that, I think a lot of people are looking at now, and they will have to look at, by the way, going forward, because, Web 3 will be hard to sort of talk about directly with these companies. But I think when you remove all that stuff and you go back to the consumer, the employee, the person, the kid on the street, what are they getting out of it? They're being incentivized to be healthy, but they're also getting these other rewards. I think when you strip away all the Web3 elements, it's still a very human story. It's motivating people, getting them healthy. It's like a good news story. And if your product or your platform has that beautiful story, then you'll get a community. And I think brands can't get communities anymore, and so they're interested into getting into our space where there are real people, talking to each other, getting eyeballs. It's so hard to get engagement these days.
It's about showcasing what the real problem you're solving is, instead of just saying this is the great and powerful things that we could do. We could do this with this funding, pretty much give us money to have some fun. You're saying this is the problem that is going to be solved, and when you add a human element, a big thing that I love to see when I look into projects, particularly now, is what I'm seeing is when there's a human element to it. An instance is, okay, we can put this whole supply chain and logistical system of this water bottle on the blockchain. And we can say it came from X, Y, Z, Ethiopia, then it ended up in Melbourne. So we can see it on the blockchain. That'd be cool. But what would be even greater is if we saw the person packaging the deal, packaging the plastic, moving it to X, Y, Z, seeing what royalties went to which person. That adds a human element to it. And it's something that Gnars has done extremely well with. Give us a story of a skateboarder that you guys have supported in Uganda, particularly, or more recently. Jump onto that.
Yeah, so there was an early contributor to our community, Davin. So shout out Davin from Kampala in Uganda. He's a really forward-thinking entrepreneur from, quite a foreign place to most of us. Like I've only seen footage. I haven't been there yet. I'd love to go soon. But he's done all these different businesses in his community, and he was sort of looking for an opportunity to show his community that he would give back. And just funnily enough, he just loves skateboarding. Like he doesn't skate or anything, but he just loves it. And in Kampala, they finally got a skate park built, but it's not to any kind of international standard. So if you imagine a skate park, when you fall off, you want it to be like slippery, shiny cement, so you just sort of slide and don't rip your knees apart. Where theirs looks more like pebble tex. Like it's awful, to be honest. And like the pitches on the ramps and everything are just all out of whack. So what we've done is we've sponsored a movement called Africa, which Davin has set up, and basically we've sent him a bunch of gear. So if anyone's familiar with my noun, its head looks like a skateboard, and I actually send loads of people actual skateboards modelled off that same design. So like even pros, there's a pro called Tom Raw who does all the graphic design for the Berrics. Like he rides one on Instagram to all his followers, and people are now asking to get them. But I just send them out to people that need them. We've shipped over, I think, 50 complete decks and with trucks and wheels and everything over to Kampala. And then also a bunch of little tech decks for people to practice and do all this fun stuff. And sort of
continuously surprising them with something.
Yeah,
with something.
Yeah, and something positive that they can actually use. And I guess the point of that story and sort of getting Davin involved in that way is it's opened up doors for them to actually get a professional standard skate park. So I'm now talking with Tony Hawk Foundation and the Skate Park Project, and been working with Lily Schwimmer from there to set up some opportunities that are outside of the US through some contacts of hers at Skaterstan and other organisations that are in more remote areas. So hopefully we can deliver like a full international standard skate park to Kampala in Uganda in the next year.
More activations to come. Closing up the space. Space is called funding. Let's imagine we all get our funding. We're trying to create a bigger movement. Summarize in one sentence what movement you guys are wanting to create. In one sentence. What do you want people to be a part of? What do you want them to think externally of just the project, of just the skateboard? What do you want them to feel? What movement is that?
want to jump?
Well, yeah, ours is very simple. It's health and well-being. So improve your health and your wealth.
Yeah, I got a bit of a tagline in my head actually. With nouns, people, places, things. So I tend to say on Twitter that you find your people, you discover the places they come from, so they can do their thing. It's just about giving back and providing public goods that empower those that are less fortunate.
Boom, let's close up the space. NFT Battle for myself, it's around culture, let's do it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.